Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Four Thoughts podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to make an announcement. This is a spoiler-filled review for the movie Batman v Superman. If you have yet to see the film and would like to see it without any spoilers, please do not watch the podcast until further notice. Thank you. That said, this is Mike Pickard, and joining me today...
Hey, this is Jordan DiGiacomo.
I am Judah Rose.
Judah's a friend of mine from college, but that said...
We are about to share what is considered an unpopular opinion in terms of Batman v Superman reviews. Everybody's putting it down. It's got a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. And we're about to share a review of about 80% saying that it's a good movie.
All right, do you want to go around, Jordan? What is your out of 10 scaled review for Batman v Superman?
I'm going to give it an 8.5.
I agree, 8.5.
I would say 8.5, but probably for different reasons than these guys.
All right, cool. Well, why don't we go around, Jordan? What made this movie an 8.5 for you? What grounded it in that level?
Okay, well, I have a different opinion than you guys do, and that is that it's that I genuinely enjoyed every second of this movie because it was basically a comic book adaptation straight onto the movie screen. It was really true to the stories that it was based on, many stories that it was based on, to be honest with you.
Definitely.
Like, there was a bunch of them. But I don't know. I just super enjoyed it. And everybody's been saying that the Batman v Superman actual fight, like, it was way too short. I thought it was the perfect length of time in consideration to the other movie, like, to the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, for me, I definitely think it was an 8.5 because there were flaws with the film. It wasn't a perfect film. It was no Dark Knight. But it was definitely enjoyable. And I think that for what it was, being a movie that starred that many big-time characters, that many big-name characters, I should say, and having them all have some sort of development and having something to do with the plot, I was very impressed by that, especially having low expectations for the film based on any trailers and whatnot.
Yeah.
I was very pleasantly surprised that this movie made me cry. So, so 8.5 definitely is worth it for me. Definitely not a 3.
Okay, so I give this one an 8.5, mostly because of how much fun it was to watch. All the fight scenes were really, really well choreographed. The special effects were great. The acting was really good, especially in the fight scenes. You got a lot of different emotions within the fight scenes and like character arcs and stuff. And so I'd say that's the reason I give it an 8.5. It was just a really, really good fight scene movie, and it had other stuff to support it along the way.
I should say a few things, though. Okay, right before we actually get into the meat of the conversation, this is what I should say. First of all, we're recording this together in the same room through one mic, so I'm going to boost the audio levels and stuff later on, but just letting everybody know that's the situation. It's the first actual live podcast we've ever recorded.
Yeah, and not only that, but we're wearing outfits for the occasion.
That's true. Mike is dressed in a Superman shirt and with holding a Superman cup, and I'm wearing a Batman shirt. And I actually have a Batman shirt to sleep in as well. But what else was I going to say? I totally forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, I don't know.
We're recording on one mic.
Oh, yes, I remember what we were going to say. We are coming off of this movie hot right now. We literally just got back from seeing the movie. We talked to each other a little bit in the car and later on at dinner. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we're coming off of it fresh. So our opinions are subject to change, but for the most part, these are like immediate jerk reactions.
I feel like I'm pretty set, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of the times I will change after a couple of hours after seeing the film because this happens to me with almost every movie. I walk out and I'm like, oh man, that was so cool when he did that in the backflip. Oh, it was the best scene. Yeah. And then about 3 hours later, I start to get actually down to like the nitty gritty of the film, and I'm like, well, that one line of dialogue where the two characters were discussing their political viewpoints, and then
that's exactly what we were talking about before we went. Like, are people having, or at least fans, are they having like the Star Wars prequel effect where they go in and say, oh my God, that movie was amazing just because it was a Star Wars movie and just because we finally got to see Batman and Superman in the same movie? Or do we enjoy it for the substance? I think personally, we all enjoyed it for the substance.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. Especially in the fact that it's like, with the prequels, it was like there hadn't been a Star Wars movie for nearly like 15 years when Phantom Menace came out. But with this, it's like we're hot off the heels of like the biggest Batman franchise, arguably, in cinema history. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're getting a new Batman. and it's not something where it's like continuing the story. It's a fresh take on it, and it's not something that it's like, oh, I've been a fan for this long and I've been anticipating this. And while we have been anticipating this film, it's not like we've been waiting nearly as long as like those kind of franchises have, or for like Indiana Jones, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's like to that extent of that kind of like golden glazed view of the film.
Yeah.
But I don't not just saying that the acting of the film and all the performances and actually the plot itself, I do think we're like on par with like a higher level of filmmaking.
That being said, what was your least? We'll go around, starting with Judah. What was your least favorite character or part of the movie?
I'd have to say the arc, Batman's arc, and I talked to you guys about this. The Batman arc in the fight with Batman and Superman, I felt like there wasn't enough justification for his change of views between hating Superman and then being on his side minutes later. I thought there wasn't enough justification for that transition.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Mike?
All right, my least favorite aspect of the film. That's a good question. Probably Lex Luthor. And not to any, like, I thought he was, like, fine to the plot. Like, I thought all of his actions were fine for the most part. Like, I just kind of, like, accepted them for what they were. But I think Jesse Eisenberg's performance was not what the script had intended it to be. Like, while he may have meant to be, like, a Mark Zuckerberg type, like, a young,
That's a good
business
analogy.
mogul. Yeah. I didn't think that, like, he was too wacky. You know what I mean? Like, while the lines where it's like the line I was saying at the end of the film where he talks about the bell ringing, like, if we were saying that I wanted Bryan Cranston to be cast in the role, for that moment in that scene, he would have performed it very much like dark and very much like ring. But with Jesse Eisenberg, he performed that line. It was like ring.
Yeah.
He sounded like a crazy person.
Yeah.
So that being
I think
said,
that was intentional, though.
it was, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think he interpreted the script right.
Can I share
But it was fine.
Can I share a totally different thing that I've been saying is my least favorite part of this movie? Amy Adams as Lois Lane.
What?
And it's not her specifically. It's her character in this movie and how basically they wrote around her, making her only a plot device as opposed to an actual character. Like with depth, she had no depth throughout the movie. Like it was just, she's like a sex object for Clark and then like the trigger for the spear at the end. Like I just didn't like how, like maybe if you gave her depth rather than just being like a reporter or whatever, that, and all the information that she was reporting on, we had already known basically, like, and we could have figured out via other sources.
Yeah, but the problem with Lois Lane in that regard is that like she had a lot to do in Man of Steel, which was terrible because she had like General Zod would like this woman to accompany us. That made no sense. It is like she was doing stuff in that movie that she didn't have to. She was just a reporter. She wasn't like a special ops kind of like military person. She was just doing things in the plot. And so for them to scale that back in this movie, especially in a movie this crowded with other superheroes and big like characters like that, I felt that her role in the film was fine and not like, well, people might say like a sexist view on that in terms of like sex objects or like the damsel in distress motif or not motif, like trope. I thought she was fine. I thought like her being scaled back wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I didn't really have any problems with it. I thought it was actually cool how she was like an established, like steady character in the thing, and we didn't have to doubt her at all or like have any misgivings about her. And she was like, she's in love with Clark and she wants the best for him, and that's what's going on. And it was interesting how their relationship caused part of the problem with the whole thing in the desert, and like how Superman was set up for that.
Yeah,
it's because Lex Luthor like took advantage of their relationship and how steady they are.
Yeah, true.
I thought that was cool.
I don't know. I think I think she was well counterbalanced by Wonder Woman, almost, because you had this. I don't know. In my personal opinion, you had this like weaker sex object based character, and then you had Wonder Woman who was like totally like I don't give a shit and even was talking back to Bruce Wayne in a majority of the scenes they were in together, like you don't know me, like all that shit. So I mean, it was a good counterbalance, but
yeah, definitely. But I think the problem, okay, now that I'm thinking about it with Lois Lane, like I think it was fine plot wise that she didn't have as much to do, but I definitely agree with the characterization of the character, of course. But for example, like the scene at the beginning in the bathtub, she's literally her line is, "Oh, you're off being Superman. I don't know if you have time for me." And he's like, "No, baby, let's have sex in the tub." And he hops in with her. And it's like a romantic scene, and it's nice. But it was like, it didn't make her character any deeper. It just was kind of like, okay, you love me, Clark. Like, let's have sex in the tub. You know, it wasn't like.
Can we agree?
But that was also a really small part of the movie.
I know, but I'm just saying,
like, it's not like
that was the whole movie.
Yeah.
That wasn't the whole movie at all, but that is a good point. It wasn't the whole film.
All right, can we agree on the fact that Batman was the majority of the best scenes in this movie? Can we agree on that?
I can agree with that,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
It was part of them, at least. Yeah.
What was your absolute like worst scene in this movie? Like
Worst scene?
worst scene, yeah.
So hard.
That's a good question. Maybe
No,
the lack of Justice League members, because people were complaining that this movie was too packed with characters. But the fact of the matter is that while we did get a cool Flash scene with the time travel that I'm sure someone's gonna want to. Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Aquaman literally had 30 seconds on screen.
Yeah.
I was hoping Aquaman was going to have a huge, or at least a small part in this film. And what he was reduced to was a clip of a guy coming out of a submarine like, "Hey, what are you guys doing here?" And he's like, "I'm going to swim away." And he does his swim away thing. And it was kind of like, all right, well, that was cool. Can't wait to see that movie.
Can we all agree that we expected a way bigger cameo, right?
Oh, yeah,
Everybody,
totally agree, yeah.
everybody by the end of the movie expected like a huge cameo by Aquaman, which totally didn't pan out to shit. And possibly they could have had that in the extended version. There's no reason for Lois Lane at the end of the movie to put the spear in the water, other than why would you do that? Other than having Aquaman show up at the end.
Well, the water scene, the water wasn't like attached to the ocean. It was part of like the ruins of a building. I mean,
Yeah, but like she
She
actually
so purposeful. It looked
yeah,
like it
and
was, like,
she
such a big
put it
focus
in
on
the
it.
water. Like, why would she put it
so
specifically
she could
in
drown
the
in the water later.
Yeah, I guess that's
That's the only reason it was there.
It seemed so purposeful. Not her intention in doing it, but the movie makers and how they shot the scene. It looked like they were like, all right, pay attention to this. She's putting it in the water.
Yeah. So everybody thought by the end of the movie either Aquaman was going to revive Superman or he was going to show up in the Doomsday fight.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Aquaman should have shown up like a Stan Lee cameo and made like a fish joke, and everybody would have been like, "Oh, Aquaman's great!" And then like DC would have been like, "Great, we made it work. Aquaman works."
Okay, so moving forward, I want to get into the Justice League cameo type thing, like the email, and I want to get into the other Flash-based scene. So I guess we'll start off with that. Dream or reality?
I'm going to say that it's a reality, because why would Batman have a dream of him sitting in it, where he's sitting right there, having and being explained that the dream he had just had was real?
I agree,
You know?
but he did wake up twice.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, like he could have like been knocked out by the he may have been knocked out by the Speed Force.
That's true.
It could have been some random like comic magic that caused him to wake up twice. But it was
the
definitely-
lightning was blue.
But the lightning was blue. Zoom?
What did you think, and what do you think it's going to lead into, that specific scene? Because everybody assumed that was going to happen, and I know you and I had a conversation when like one of the first trailers came out of this exact instance, and of him coming back from whatever.
Wait, you thought
whatever
guys
year.
thought the Flash would show up the same way he did in this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. Yeah. So what happened was I had made a prediction that because when I'd seen an interview where they said the Flash's costume was post-apocalyptic. And so my theory was at the end of this movie, which I wasn't accurate, but I thought that Flash was going to show up after the final battle and that Barry Allen in the main timeline had yet to become the Flash, but he had been in the future. And at the end of this film, we were going to see Barry Allen come back from the past and be like, "We need to form the Justice League." Roll credits. And I thought that was my prediction for how Batman v Superman was going to end. And there was a scene very similar to that where Barry Allen does show up, but it's in a dream sequence in a way, and it's kind of confusing whether or not, it happened or not. So it's a interesting thing to discuss.
I think you should share your theory.
With the Flash? Oh.
Yes.
Mine was that... I'm not trying to remember everything that I said. Mine was that it was the Flash from the future, and he was coming back to speak with Bruce Wayne, but Bruce Wayne was having his weird nightmare sequences, and instead of nightmares, they were actually glimpses of a possible future that got sucked with the Flash as he went through the Time Force and went through time to come back and talk.
So it was basically like a fracture in time that creates these things. But then again, I want to know how, if that's true, which it seems like it is, because Darkseid is the ultimate Justice League villain. That's what they're going to use in Justice League. I want to know how it gets so bad that Superman is a dictator-esque person, that Flash needs to come back and warn Bruce Wayne that Superman is this bad in the future.
Well, this will tie into the conversation we're going to end with, I'm pretty sure. Not yet, but the idea that, or the end of the film with Superman's death, I think that...
Spoilers.
I already warned them! But the fact that Superman is dead at the end of this film, I think ties into the fact that Flash in this future that he would have come from, Superman would have been revived during the Darkseid War, where all these parademons are flying around, and he may have been revived by Darkseid's power in some way or technology.
I have a new theory.
And
I
was just gonna say that. Yeah, I was just gonna say that Darkseid probably possesses Superman when he comes back to life, and that's why Flash comes back and he's like, it's true, you're right. He's a dictator and an evil tyrant, but only because Darkseid somehow unleashes the inner darkness within Clark.
Can I share? All right, I'm going to share mine really fast. Just came up with this on the fly. What if the Justice League starts out by blaming Superman for what Darkseid's doing, considering the fact that Darkseid has similar powers? So Flash and Batman assume that it was Superman doing something.
I would hate that.
I mean, it would be a redo.
Worse.
It would be a redo of Batman v Superman, essentially. But they're blaming him, so Batman gets Lois Lane, and that's how that scene happens. And that's why the Flash hates him, because he thinks that he's the one doing all this when in fact it's Darkseid.
In my theory, I just thought of this as they were talking, is in this movie we see a real arc in Superman's. He becomes less innocent, I think. He becomes much less innocent and much more accepting of the fact that people are bad and that people turn bad. And you can see that as it goes through the movie, it becomes more cynical almost. And so I think that it's possible that they could continue that in the next movies, because he's obviously going to come back to life. Yeah. So they can continue that in the next movies, and the theme will continue. And so he'll get to the point where he's like, well, everyone's bad, and I can make everyone's bad, and I'm the most powerful one. And I can make people be nice to each other by force. Then why wouldn't I do that?
That's not a bad point. I mean, even at the end of the movie, when he's flying off to fight Batman, not everybody stays good or whatever the phrase he says. I don't know. What did you guys think about the other Justice League cameos? So we got Cyborg. We got Wonder Woman worked into the movie, but she also had a cameo, and then Aquaman.
So I definitely think the Flash cameos were very interesting. I mean, the video footage of the Flash was kind of mad because he wasn't in costume for me.
I thought that was cooler than the time travel thing.
All right.
In my opinion.
The Aquaman was kind of a tease because Aquaman, even in the toys and the marketing of this movie, Aquaman's the only other Justice League member besides the Trinity who gets figures for this movie.
He got a lot of press.
And he was only in it. He was the least out of all the cameos. Yep. The Cyborg one was cool. It gave me background for the character. It gave me ethos and pathos for him. Yeah. I understand him now.
Yeah. And he's sympathetic.
Yeah.
But also that we found out that what we think is Darkseid's mother box.
Yes, his mother box
is what is essentially giving Cyborg his powers.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to say where they find the kryptonite towards the beginning, I thought that was Aquaman's thing, and it could have been. It could have been an Atlantean area, but as another Easter egg, because in Man of Steel also there was Wayne Tech satellites and stuff. So I was trying to look for shit like that, all super low key stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely thought when that opening scene with the kid who was scuba diving, I thought he was gonna go down and pick up a piece of one of the Kryptonian terraforming things from the Man of Steel movie, and I thought Aquaman was gonna show up and be like, no, do not take from the ocean, but that didn't happen. But
What do you think?
About the overall cameos.
Yeah,
cameos,
all
yeah.
All right.
the email cameos.
I was not being hyper vigilant about this movie for like looking for Easter eggs and stuff like you were. So I wasn't even thinking of Aquaman in the beginning at all. But I think they were too short. I agree that the Aquaman and the Flash were way too short. I wish I could have seen the Flash show up more, at least like in action, actual like doing something instead of just.
You didn't even know it was the Flash.
Well, for the time travel
Sorry.
thing, I didn't know it was the Flash at first. But for the video, the security footage of him, I wish he like actually did something. You could see him like stand there in his pose with his costume or something.
Yeah.
But I think it's good that they left some mystery because it gives us something to like discover in the next movies. So I'm on both sides of it.
Well, there was a huge controversy over the email in a lot of the reviews that I've seen thus far about that it is the worst plot device that they have ever seen in a superhero movie.
I can talk about that in a second. Yeah, I have
But
some points.
it's essentially just I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't seen the movie, but it's a spoiler. But it's essentially just detailed reports on all of the people that will eventually be in the Justice League, and basically it's Wonder Woman and Bruce Wayne communicating back and forth about the Justice League and such. But was it the worst plot device you've ever seen?
It wasn't that the idea of it was bad. I think that sending her an email and being like, "It's not your photo. It's a photo of you." I thought that was kind of like it was whatever. I mean, like they did it. I can't say anything wrong about it. Like it worked for what it was. But the dialogue that Bruce Wayne would have had to type out. Let me play this out for you.
Enter.
Yeah, hold up. All right. I gotta put this text message together. Okay. This photo isn't yours. Period. Enter. It's a photo of you. Enter. Insert photo. Enter. How old are you? What is your MySpace? Enter. And it was just like
he was wearing the cowl all while he was sending the email.
he had to be.
He has
It was
the robot voice going on.
Yeah.
Just saying it out loud.
yeah. It's almost as if someone.
Bring me some milk and cookies.
Yeah, it was almost as if while writing this email, or no, not even as writing this email. It's almost like whoever was on like a set and was told to write this email out was like, all right, I'm gonna type it out exactly how they tell me to, and they literally handed them the script and like copied and pasted it. They put in enters, and it was like dramatic
was it
pauses.
The worst plot device you've ever seen.
No,
No.
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
That's not.
I
what'd
didn't.
you think?
When it came out, it didn't hit me as like hooky or anything.
Yeah.
So that's speaking to that it worked in the film.
Mhm.
And there's the whole thing with them like trading information back and forth to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think it worked fine. It wasn't a big deal.
I mean, I was a huge fan of hers in the Fast and the Furious movies.
Yeah, same.
I mean, she's really hot. That's a plus. I thought she was actually a great character, though, in general.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the mysterious aspect of her with Bruce Wayne, I thought was a super interesting plot point. Like rather than having, I mean, we all knew it was Wonder Woman, but but if you're not a comic book fan and you're going in, you're wondering about that person. I don't know.
Wondering if it's Wonder Woman.
Oh, screw you. Get out of here. Okay. Moving forward, we're going to touch on Lex Luthor. Before we get into what your thoughts are about him, I want to touch on first, what was his motivation to want to kill Superman? We had this conversation before we jumped in here, and I'll give you guys a minute to gather your thoughts. But we had this conversation about they never really give an explanation for why Lex Luthor doesn't like Superman as much as he does. And one of the points that we had come up with was that he hates him for similar reasons that Batman hates him for destroying the city. But it's never really spelled out for the audience why he hates him. It's just that he does hate him. Do you have any points?
I had hoped it would have been very old school continuity from the like 40s, where
you made me bald.
exactly. I was hoping it was gonna be like, when I was a small boy in Kansas, you blew down my house and my hair fell out, and now I hate you. But
Well, that's how he is by the end.
no, by the end he gets his head shaved. But
Blame Superman.
no, I honestly think that the reason he hates him is because Lex is someone who gets what he wants. Like, perfectly example is when he's offering to get kryptonite to like militarize it, and the senators are like kind of iffy about it, but he kind of like forces the like Jolly Rancher down the guy's
I
throat.
was going to say that even smaller example is the Jolly Rancher putting in the guy's
Yeah,
throat.
exactly. He gets what he wants, and for him,
That's an interesting analogy.
yeah, but for someone who gets everything they want and in their mind is above everybody else, to have someone who is glorified for the most part as like pretty much the messiah of Metropolis, it's kind of like it would be hard for him to take egotistically. So I think he hates Superman for being like the one thing he couldn't ever beat. You know what I mean?
Well, then why also did he want to kill Batman? By the end of the movie, he was sending Superman to go kill Batman. Like, he didn't really hate Superman as much as he hated Batman.
I think he just wanted all of them out of the way, and he wanted Superman to be shown to be doing something like evil or wrong, even if it's not on the side of everyone. Because not everyone was on the side of Batman, but still some people supported him.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a combination of he wanted Superman to do something heinous in front of the world so that everybody thought Superman was a terrible person, but also he clearly knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman, who Bruce Wayne is for the most part, his nemesis in his career. Business and his career. So taking Bruce Wayne out and taking out the Batman and taking Superman out of the picture is killing a bird with like 12. It's like killing 12 birds with one stone.
Yeah.
You know, it was his checkmate.
Yeah, in the scene when he's talking to the senator woman about importing the kryptonite, I think it spells out most clearly his feelings on it, which is basically that, there might be this all other psychological stuff going on like Mike was talking about, but I think that he says that it's because Superman is so powerful, and it seems very similar to Batman's reasoning, and that we need to have a weapon to stop him if he does come against us. And so that's what he said to the public, and that's what he said to the senator, but it does seem like there may be other things going on in his head besides that.
Well, okay, so I think our common consensus about Lex Luthor's as a personality, we're moving to that now, but I think his common personality is that he went a little too overboard. Jesse Eisenberg pushed the envelope just a tad too much in certain situations. None of us really thought he was horrible, I don't think.
Not at all.
But he did have a couple annoying tendencies, but you guys can give that first. You guys can chip in here first because we're going to go into the future, and my opinion involves the future of Lex Luthor, so I'll pull us in there. But you guys can give your opinion on Lex Luthor. Yeah, just what you thought of the character.
I think Lex worked in some regards. I think that I'll go back to it. I think Bryan Cranston should have been cast in the role because
It would have been really good.
Yeah, I didn't find Lex to be intimidating. Like, he's just kind of like I think of a lot of reviews have said, it's almost as if he's trying to act, Jesse Eisenberg that is, he's trying to make him act crazy for the sake of being like, I'm dastardly evil.
It's like Dr. Evil.
Yeah, like, I have your mother. It's like, he could have, if he was played by like Bryan Cranston.
No, but the I Have Your Mother scene was great.
Oh, that was a good scene.
Scene.
I just feel like all of his like performance throughout the film was pretty much just like, it would be a shame if I had your mother.
Can I throw something out here really fast? Did you guys notice where Superman was like, where is she?
Yeah.
Did anyone else think of Batman? Where is she? Where's Rachel?
Yeah, I thought that right away.
I thought that right away.
I can't believe I didn't think about that.
But my opinion on this Lex Luthor thing is that he was insane for the whole first movie. But I think after he got his head shaved, he kind of got, and I don't know why that's a fucking traumatic event for him, but he got his head shaved, but he became like a darker character. So I think in the future, when we're looking at a Superman Brainiac movie, it's possible that he's just going to be a darker character in with that. So I don't know. You guys.
I think that there was a change from him in the most of the movie than to him in the last scene. I don't know if it was darker, but it seems like he's a little bit unhinged in the whole movie. Obviously, if you just watch him, he's like, yeah, he's a little insane. But then once he gets beaten, it could be back to what Mike was saying with his ego and like he can't stand someone being above him. And he lost. He seemed to snap. He just seemed to break. And so I think he's going to become more of like a Joker-ish kind of villain and just be completely insane. That's my theory.
I was just about to relate it, and both of you guys are going to say, "Oh, you're right." What? Audience, catch this. I think that him going to prison, leading off of what Jordan was saying, is kind of like Kingpin. It's kind of like Kingpin in season 2 of Daredevil, when he goes in and he's like, "Oh, I'm not the top fish here. I'm angry, and I'm going to be the top fish, and I'm going to get rid of my competition." It's going to change his personality because, like, Wilson Fisk was very similar when he showed up in Daredevil season 2. Oh, spoiler alert for Daredevil season 2.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But
we already said this was a spoilerful podcast.
Spoilerful. Yeah, but I think kind of the same idea happens where it's like he gets into prison and he realizes, oh, shoot, I lost. And he has to like change his mindset.
And continuing that, it could be similar. He helps the people in Suicide Squad or the Joker.
Yeah.
Was it the Joker?
Yeah, the Joker breaks
could
out.
help the Joker break out in the same kind of way that Fisk helps the Punisher break out.
Oh,
Well-
good point. I didn't think about that.
Well, we were actually talking about this as well, but we were talking about how the Joker breaks out at the beginning of Suicide Squad. That's a pretty much known fact, but how he breaks out is still a mystery to everybody. And we were talking about, since this takes place before Suicide Squad in continuity, it could be that Doomsday or this event with Doomsday, and it gives Joker the ability to escape, or like we haven't even, like you just said, and we hadn't thought about previously, it could be Lex helping Joker escape just to torture Batman for putting him away or something.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I mean that's an awesome theory. Okay, we're pulling into the final act of the movie here with the death of Superman. Now, I would just like to say personally, I tried to catch up on all the comics related to this movie ahead of time. I tried to read the comics. I read Death of Superman, and it was not a great comic, but I mean, it was sort of faithful to the fighting in it to an extent, but I always will say that I wish he had gone full Doomsday, and I'm going to try and throw a picture up in this podcast of what I'm talking about by going full Doomsday. But instead of being just a Ninja Turtle the whole time with a couple rocks on him, I wish he went actual full Crown of Spikes Doomsday. You have any opinions on?
I definitely agree with that. I think that Doomsday, I thought he was fine in the film. I didn't have any problems with his development or character or any of his fight scenes, but his appearance was something that was kind of lackluster for me. But I kept saying that before this film, that if I walked out of a movie called Batman vs. Superman and did not like it, I probably would have cried. Despite saying that that's why I would have cried, I ended up crying in this movie when Superman got stabbed. And in my mind, I was like, reading Death of Superman is one thing. Watching Superman die was the most heart-wrenching thing I might have
And it came
ever
out of
seen in a movie.
nowhere. I did not see that coming.
It was the ending I never saw coming.
Yeah.
And for me, as someone who praises Superman and Batman as being like the moral compasses in my life, that was one of the most heart-wrenching things I've ever watched. And at first, I didn't know if I was crying because I just didn't blink during that whole fight scene, and it was like emotions that were driving me, but it was just emotion. I was tearing up, and I'm not afraid to admit to that.
And you're talking about, you told me like when he was pulling himself forward, you're like, what is he doing? He just got stabbed. What is he doing now? And he like finishes with the jab through Doomsday's chest, and he just finishes him off. Ugh. It was great.
I
Great season.
thought Batman's whole development with the kryptonite and how he uses it not only in grenades, but then he fashions a spear to kill Superman. I thought that whole scene was amazing. And I don't know why the critics had such a hard time with that. With specifically the Batman v Superman fight scene, and then going into the ending, like people really had a hard time with this movie and this ending in particular. And I mean, from all of our perspectives, it was a fantastic fight and a fantastic lead in to the death of Superman. And I mean, none of us really expected that to happen. And especially, I didn't expect it to go on for as long as it went on. Like, I expected him to come back, obviously, but when you get up until the end credits with him still dead, that was mind blowing. And then we just get a hint at the very last second before the credits, the dirt levitates, and we're to assume that he comes back to life.
Batman v Superman, while people are like, the fight scene wasn't long enough, and we all felt that it was fine. Like, I thought it was an ample amount of time for them to resolve their problems.
It didn't drag on.
Yeah, it didn't drag on. One, it didn't drag on. But secondly, the movie's called Batman v Superman. They never said that it was about Batman fighting Superman fisticuffs. It could have just been about their ideals, which the whole film focused on.
Yep.
So I have no problem with people being like, or I have a problem with people saying, Batman v Superman, they only fought for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, the whole movie was their philosophical debate. It was like whether or not like Superman should have like free reign to use his power over like protecting people and the consequences.
And even down to the editing, it was a Batman v Superman. It was Batman showing his side of the story, then Superman showing his side of the story, then Batman showing his side of the story, and it went through that. Even through editing, it showed Batman versus Superman, and then ultimately the two shots came together, and you see both sides, and that's where the fight occurs. I mean, honestly, people have shot this movie down for sloppy editing. I thought it was incredible editing. I thought it was amazing photography, amazing editing. I don't know. I think it was perfectly fine. I think it was a fantastic movie. What do you think, Judah?
Yeah, we had a whole discussion about how they had 2 years to edit this movie and how they got bad reviews. Before we saw the movie, we were like, wow, if they had 2 years to edit this movie and it got bad reviews, like, shame on you, editors. You didn't do your job well. But after seeing it, the way it cut back and forth between the reviews and the way everything just fit together, I thought it was edited really well, just from personal opinion.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I have no problems with the editing that I could see.
Yeah, and I mean, Judah, you said you had a problem with the dream sequences and how you felt that how they fit into the plot.
That's true, but I think that they can be explained later on in movies, and I think that they will be explained later on, and so I'm anticipating that explanation.
Yeah, I understand your viewpoint on that, but for myself, like, I was a huge proponent of how you were saying, like, they had 2 years or technically a year and a half to edit this film, and the fact that it didn't turn out like with positive reviews, like, that's a long time. Like, most movies aren't in development for that long before being released. So I think it's kind of a shame that it's not hitting the audience as a whole as I'm sure they wanted to.
Yeah.
But I thought the editing was fine. Like, I thought the dream sequences flowed well. I liked how there was kind of like, wait, what's happening right now? Oh, it's a dream. What's happening? Oh, Batman's hallucinating. Like, I thought that was kind of cool how it kept you guessing. It wasn't just like holding your hand like, here's a shot of Batman asleep. Now let's do a close in zoom in shot on his forehead, and then we'll go into his dream.
Well, I think it did a great job of pleasing fans. It was not a critically acclaimed movie, obviously, but it wasn't made for that. And in countless interviews with Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, they say that it's not made for the critics, it's made for the fans. And you can obviously see that even on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 30% with critics and an 80% with audiences. And we all gave it an 80%, 85%. And you can see the differences. Like, we all thought that it was an amazing movie because we understood everything and we went into it with a preconceived notion from the critics that it was going to be awful, and it was amazing. But I just think that I don't know. I think it shouldn't hurt the box office like it's going to because of these critics that are shooting it down. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If you guys check out my Instagram, follow me on Instagram at Michael Pickard Art.
Oh my God.
I just wanted to say that. But if you guys follow my Instagram, I have a photo up there that I put the other day where I Google searched Batman v Superman reviews. And this was the first day it had come out. And I highlighted 2 different Google results that had come up. The first one being, first early reviews of Batman v Superman are overwhelmingly positive. And the one literally directly underneath it were, early reviews of Batman v Superman are overwhelmingly negative. And for me, as someone who's going into the film, as much as I am a comic book nerd and someone who wants to follow that as a career, there's no way to describe how confusing it is to hear two different opinions on something before you go into something.
We even were texting back and forth about that exact thing. Like, you hadn't seen many negative things, and I had seen a ton of negative press on it. And I even saw something that said, "Is this the end of the DC cinematic universe?"
Oh, yeah.
And coming out of this movie, going in, we thought, yeah, maybe it could be, but maybe they could revive it with Batman. Maybe that's how they do it. They release a couple Batman movies and then come back to the Justice League stuff. But coming out of this movie, would you guys even think that it would be the end? This is the end of the Justice League universe, combined universe?
It's a great setup. They got the characters, they got like the mystery for like finding new characters and all the arcs for them,
And even the villain.
Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can't attest to the longevity of this film.
Yeah.
I can't say that in 10 years I'm going to look back and say that is a great film. Like I'm sure people are going to with The Dark Knight. Like people talk about The Dark Knight like it's like one of the greatest films of all time. But
it could not necessarily be we look back and say that's a great film, but it could be this was the turning point for DC in the cinematic universe.
yeah, that was kind of my point. I was going to say that while it's not a movie that I can guarantee will live up, but is there live up to how I feel it is right now? Yeah. I definitely think that giving me this stepping stone to get to the next part of their franchise where it's Justice League, I definitely think Batman v Superman did a good job of that. While I like the story now, and I think it's historic that we're seeing Batman and Superman in a movie together, and Wonder Woman for that matter. I can't say that this movie's going to hold up, but for what it is, for what it acts as, for setting up the DC cinematic universe, I think that it's successful. You know what I mean?
Also, it sets a precedent, not a president.
Mr. President.
That was one of our last podcasts. We discussed the president.
Was it Dwayne Johnson?
Yeah.
It sets a precedent for the look of the movie. The look of the movie was great, and the special effects were fantastic, and the way they used the powers and the way that Batman, like his look and like his gadgets and stuff, it all looked fantastic. So I'm really excited to see how Aquaman uses his powers and how the Flash looks when he's using his powers and everything. I'm really excited for that.
I mean, we're all fans of like the shows and stuff, so we all love that those effects even. But honestly, this movie left me wanting more, and not more out of the movie, but more of this universe. I want to know more about Batman and how he feels about the death of his Robin, and I want to know more about Superman's inner conflict with is he evil or is he good, and I want to know about Flash and why he came back, and I want to know why Wonder Woman was being so secretive, and like it leaves me wanting so much more in the future that I couldn't possibly see this being the end of the DC universe. I thought it was an incredible film, and it really just lost out on reviews.
Well, I don't think it'll be the end because they also did spend a couple $1 million making the film. So I don't think they're going to waste the $1 million and be like, well, that was a flop. I mean, they already did that with Green Lantern. They wouldn't do that again.
They also had a second Fantastic Four movie planned.
Right, that was Marvel. I'm not getting into Marvel and Fox's issues right now. I'm talking about DC and Warner Brothers.
Okay, all right.
All right, here's actually just a question for you guys. Because I know, and I can even explain what my pitch for this movie was because I had brought this up to these guys earlier. Would you have changed anything about the plot of this film? Because I, going into it, had an idea of how I would have pitched Batman v Superman, which I can get into a little bit later, or after you guys bring up your points. But would you have changed anything in the plot of this film?
After seeing the movie, I would have definitely, we talked about it a little bit earlier, I would have definitely changed Lex Luthor. And have him be more backstory, or have more backstory for him, because in the meeting he's like, oh, Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent finally meeting. It's like, how does he know them really? Mm-hmm. And so I wish that they explained his backstory and how he knows the two of them more.
I had an idea, and the idea that I pitched to you before we went is how they ended up going with the movie, And it was funny because I, too, had a separate idea of how I wanted this movie to pitch. And to be honest, in my head, every time I asked a question, it was answered. Even down to, when the guy in the wheelchair gets up on
Wallace.
the Superman statue. I was like, wait, where's the cop? Oh, he's right there. Like, I was wondering where the cop was to say, hey, get down off there. And there was. But even like minor story notes like that, like that's how I went through like the whole movie. I was like, wow, like they seriously, this is what I would have done if I was making a Batman v Superman movie. Even stylistically, like it was exactly what I wanted and exactly what I would have done.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I mean, knowing myself, I'm someone who's always like talking about hypotheticals with stories and how I'm like, well, if I was making the film, I would have done this, and I pitch a whole new plot for the film. And I can't necessarily say that the plot I had in mind would have worked as well as the plot did for this film. Because I definitely agree, like, going into this, I had heard things that the guy in the wheelchair, Wallace, I had heard that he was Jimmy Olsen, and that even despite having lost his legs, he was writing a pro-Superman blog. And so I was going into the movie expecting to experience that. But then having Wallace be someone who, kind of like what I'll get into, my plot for the film's villain,
Yeah.
he was very anti-Superman for having destroyed his life and having crippled him.
Yeah.
But no, he was pretty mobile when he climbed up that statue. He wasn't crippled at all. But
Still can walk.
yeah, he couldn't walk, which is a shame. But yeah, I definitely think that.
Your idea could have tied into this movie.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll get into that. Let me pitch this movie to everybody. And it's the second time these two have heard it.
Connections.
The Web, Spider-Man 3. No.
That's your pitch, Spider-Man.
All right. So we loaded up with a bunch of villains. No. So and emo-ness. So what I would have done if I were making Batman v Superman is it's post Man of Steel. All of the Justice League members now exist as superheroes. It's like 3 years later. The Flash is a hero. Maybe Green Lantern's a hero. Cyborg exists. Or maybe not Cyborg. Let's just throw out some characters, you know. Aquaman is here. But the connection is Flash and Green Lantern know each other, and they're friends. Green Lantern has met Batman on several occasions. And they're kind of, you know, as much of a friend as you can be to Batman at that point. Wonder Woman and Batman know each other and are kind of flirtatious. But Wonder Woman is also friends with Aquaman and Superman. Aquaman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, at this point in the chronological order of this universe, are essentially the trinity of this universe. But kind of what happens in the film, Batman is very much against the ideals of Superman being all-powerful. He has no problems with Wonder Woman or Aquaman because while they are extremely powerful and dangerous beings, they're not nearly at the same level of Superman in terms of their prowess. So Superman would be dealing with the same things he struggles with in the actual film Batman v Superman in terms of like whether or not his purpose should be to like help people and like how he impacts the world and whatnot. But where I differ in this film is that there would not have been Doomsday, but the villain of this film would have been a man who I'm blanking on the actual character's identity right now, his his name, I should say. But he would have been crippled in the Man of Steel fight, and much like Wallace is in the film, would have resented Superman for having ruined his life and for having left him disabled.
Steel with Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal. But so Lex Luthor would have come to this man who would have been against Superman in all of the press hearings and whatnot, and would have said, this man would have been ex-military, by the way, and he would have told him, I can give you all of the means you want to take your revenge on Superman. And using the kryptonite that Lex would have acquired throughout the film would create this robotic body and make this man Metallo, who in the comics is a Superman villain who has a heart of kryptonite, which is, of course, Superman's weakness. And what would happen would be Batman and Superman would have their budding conflict, and they would get into a fight. But while they were fighting, Lex Luthor releases Metallo. And Wonder Woman, being the reasonable one out of those three, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, goes and gathers the Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Cyborg, Shazam, anybody you can think of who would be in this universe. And she pretty much says, we need to stop Bruce and Clark from fighting so we can get them to fight Metallo and help us like save the day. Mm-hmm. And so the Justice League forms in stopping Batman and Superman from fighting. Batman and Superman realize that their conflict is petty and that they're fighting on the same side, and then they all stop Metallo, and the day is saved. But
I mean, realistically, that's not that far off of the actual plot of the movie. I mean,
yeah, in a couple ways.
I mean, you're saying that that Metallo is basically making Superman weak, and isn't that what the actual guy in the wheelchair did? Right? He was used as a martyr and made Superman weak to the point where he had to leave. Like, I think, to be honest with you, like, all of our different side plots, like different alternate plots, come back to the plot of this movie. We honestly, this is the movie that we wanted to see. Like, I don't think it could have gotten any better for what this movie was. So, I don't know. I think that...
I wish that there were more Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne interactions. Definitely. We just watched the Batman and Superman movie, or the Superman and Batman movie, whatever.
Yeah, from 1995.
And it was hilarious in that how they interact a lot, and they just kind of like just take jabs at each other the whole time. Like Bruce Wayne starts dating Lois Lane and stuff.
Yeah.
And Lois Lane. And I wish that there were more interactions between Bruce and Clark Kent after they knew who each other were in the movie. It would have been really fun to watch.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. One thing that I kind of thought might have been cool is if we had some kind of setup for their meeting at Lex's party where Clark kept wanting to write about Gotham and the Bruce Wayne type figure, and he was like, I think there's a connection between the two. And Perry White kept being like, nobody cares about you, Clark. I can't tell that you're Superman. But Clark...
Where'd he go?
Yeah, Clark... Where'd Clark go? Superman's here. Oh, Clark, thank God you're here. Superman was here.
Superman.
Yeah, just with Superman. No, but I think that there should have been, there would have been a cool scene to have seen Superman or Clark in this sense investigating and doing some like journalistic research and being like, I think Bruce Wayne is Batman. And then having the chance to see him at the party, and he would have been like, how do you feel about the Bat Vigilante? And like pressuring him and kind of like coercing him into admitting something.
And he heard the Alfred talking to him.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that might come up in the extended version. I think that the 2.5 hour runtime was pretty intense. I mean, not that I didn't want that. Like, I would have liked a 5 hour Batman v Superman movie, but for what it was, that probably would have gotten critics pissed off if there was even more onto the movie, because I wouldn't take anything away to replace that, would you? I mean,
no.
Possibly the Lois Lane scenes and replaced for Clark Kent doing the journalism. Possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe because I was biased against her. I don't know. But I don't know. I think that about wraps up our opinions of the movie. I mean, if anybody else has anything to add, or
Yeah, I definitely think that if you have seen the film and you are not a comic book fan and have listened to this, I think that whether or not you feel that it's worthy of the 3 that Rotten Tomatoes gave it, or like the 8.5 that we gave it, I think that it's the main thing that I'm taking away from Batman v Superman is realizing that you shouldn't always take reviews for cold hard facts. Like,
that's the truth. Yeah.
and like it's something that like you have to experience it to like find out how you actually feel about something, which is something I've always heard about butt sex. But no, just to make a joke, I'm just saying. But like in life, it's one of those things where it's like, especially with movies, you can't just judge it based on the review. If you give it the chance, you might actually like it. And that's how I feel with Batman v Superman. Don't feel that like, oh, well, the reviews are giving it a 3, and just because I didn't like it, it's automatically a 3. Form your own opinion about it.
And I mean,
don't just be a stooge.
It's not if you already don't like comic book movies, if you don't like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and if you didn't like The Dark Knight, or even if you did, it's an entirely different movie. It stands by itself. It's not Dark Knight, and it's not Marvel. But I mean, if you already didn't like superhero movies, you're obviously not going to like this movie. But if maybe you liked one, maybe you liked the other, I don't know. It's a new and fun experience, and I think if you have no bias against them, go see it. I think it's an awesome movie, and I hope that it doesn't get hurt by these reviews. I hope that people go out and see it on their own and form their own opinions.
And I would like to mention just one final thing that we were talking about, that the feel of the movie is so different from Marvel. Yeah. It's completely different feel than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's so much more grounded, and I don't know, it's just very different. You can't base this movie off of how you thought of the Marvel movies.
Yeah, that's definitely a solid point. So, what do you guys think? Let's just wrap up the podcast.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Awesome. Thank you guys for checking this out. I hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast and can tell your friends about it because we like doing it. And if you like listening to it, if you spread the audience, you're going to get more content. That said, I'm Mike Pickard. Thank you guys for listening.
I'm Jordan DiGiacomo.
And I'm Judah Rose.
And thank you guys once again. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And peace out.
And follow Mike Pickard on Instagram at Mike Pickard, Michael Pickard Art.